And I want to start with our NBC News Pentagon correspondent, Courtney Kube, who is posted up on her beat early today, Courtney, and a lot of information coming in from the officials that you're talking to there today.
Yeah, that's right. So you've mentioned some of the outlines of these strikes, but let's get into a little bit more detail. So the MOPS, as you mentioned, the massive ordnance penetrators, yes, they were used over Fordo, 14 of them. This is the largest, the first time that they have been used in an operational way like this, but it's also one of the largest strikes like this that we have seen in over 2 decades, Hallie. Now, Operation Midnight Hammer, it was not just these B-2 bombers that you were just showing video there and these giant 30,000-pound bombs. There were 125 plus U.S. military aircraft. A couple of things that we learned this morning is that some of those fighter jets flew in with the bombers into dangerous Iranian airspace, and then they went ahead of them to lay what's known as suppressive fire on the ground. That means they went ahead to take out any potential threats so that those bombers could come in and drop those bombs that on Fordo, and as we learned today, also on Natanz, a second nuclear site. But that wasn't it. The U.S. also, as you mentioned, had submarines off the coast. One of those subs launched about 30 Tomahawks. Those are missiles launched at least one of those sites, Esfahan. We are told, according to officials, including the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, that there was extensive damage done to all 3 sites. But, Hallie, the big question now is, it is well into the day there in Iran. Frankly, it's late in the day, Sunday. Yeah. The big question is, what will the final battle damage assessment? We have been hearing from Trump administration officials about this. But what I would key in on is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs saying that final battle damage assessment could take some time. Initial assessment is that all 3 sites suffered significant damage. So what happens next? We are all watching for any kind of a response from Iran, big Iran, but also from some of the Iranian proxies. The United States has about 40,000 different people throughout the region. That's at smaller bases, at bigger installations, at ships at sea, or on ships at sea. The big concern here at the Pentagon is that there will be some sort of a response going after Americans now that the U.S. has been directly involved in this ongoing campaign between Israel and Iran. The second question that we're trying to get an answer to, and we simply don't have one yet, is was there any kind of release of any radioactive material at any of these sites when the U.S. dropped these bombs and launched these missiles? Hallie, at this point, we don't have any indication that there was, but that's another question that we're trying to answer here today. 2 other things that really stood out to me that we've learned. Number 1 was the deceptive aspect to this. So the chairman of the Joint Chiefs was pretty open about it today, saying that when they launched those B-2s out of Missouri, they had some that went towards the Pacific. And then they had ones that went in towards Iran. The goal was to throw people off the scent. In this day and age, it's hard to launch aircraft, even stealth aircraft like bombers from the United States. There are always people who are watching, and they are putting it up on Twitter or X to let people know about it. That was that really stood out to me, that they acknowledged that deceptive effort. And then the second thing is he was very open about the fact that they have enhanced or increased security around U.S. installations in the area because they are concerned about some sort of possible retaliation here, Hallie.
So, Courtney, then a couple of things for you here. When you talk about the battle assessment, in other words, the damage that was done by these airstrikes, what is a reasonable timeline for that? Because the semantic difference here between a degradation of nuclear capabilities, the obliteration of nuclear capabilities, that is potentially important down the road.
Exactly. Because, look, you can drop a bomb and you can take out the entrance to one of these facilities. You can even do a lot of damage, but these were, at least 2 of them were very heavily fortified. So the question is, were they completely destroyed to the point where Iran can't rebuild them? But it's not just that. When you're talking about destroying a nuclear program, it's not just infrastructure you have to take out. They have, at this point, we are not aware that they've taken out the knowledge that exists, or maybe even Iran's willingness or openness to continuing on with an Iranian program. That's why I was really struck by the difference in tone that we heard from Secretary of Defense Hegseth. He called this the final blow to the Iranian nuclear program. But we had a more moderated tone out of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, saying that initial battle damage assessment was that all 3 sites sustained extreme damage, but he did not say that the program was completely destroyed here, Hallie. That will take more extensive analysis.
The other piece of this, and you alluded to this, is the way that the military, the U.S. military in the region is bracing for the potential for retaliation. Based on the conversations, Court, that you have had today and have been having with your sources there, what is the sort of most likely option? What is the thinking behind what is most likely the retaliation potential from Iran here?
So there's a couple of big concerns. One is going after U.S. bases in the region, some of these proxy groups, specifically in Iraq and Syria. Remember, Israel has been striking in Iran for more than a week now. They have taken out not only much of their strategic air defense systems, but they have also taken out some of their conventional capabilities. So they've gone after launchers that they would launch these missiles from and drones. But Iran has shown they can still strike. So concern is that they would go after even some of the bigger locations in there. So the U.S. has obviously a large naval facility in Bahrain. They have air bases throughout the region. But other options include not necessarily going directly after the U.S. military with one of those strikes, but doing things like mining the Strait of Hormuz or putting some sort of, in some way, blocking the free flow of U.S. Navy ships or even commercial ships. All of those are among the concerns that the U.S. has right now. Remember, the Pentagon took some mitigating factors. They allowed dependents to leave about a little over a week ago from some of those accompanied tour locations, and they've moved some things around to try to make them more secure. But the reality is there is still a lot of space there, a lot of locations that Iran and proxies could go after if they chose to.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.